So this list right here contains 8 essential gin cocktails that every home bartender must learn in their first year as a home bartender. My name is Ron Vierpin. I'm a full-time medical doctor and I've been a home bartender for over 5 years now. During that time, I've learned how to make over 100 different cocktails and I've thrown over 50 cocktail parties. And I teach other busy professionals how to make cocktails at home. And in this video, I'm going to be covering the 8 most important gin cocktails that every home bartender should learn within their first year as a home bartender. And while I'm not going to be making the actual cocktails in this video, I am going to be going over why each one of these cocktails is so important and essential to learn as a beginner home bartender. And they all have really 4 qualities in common. The first one is obvious. They all do contain gin, and they can contain any type of gin, but really the one gin that I have found the best over these past 5+ years, especially for beginner home bartenders, is going to be Beefeater. It's readily available throughout the United States and throughout the rest of the world as well. It's extremely affordable, and it works in a wide variety of classic, modern classic, and contemporary cocktails as well. It's just so versatile, so affordable, so easily accessible that this is the one gin. If you could only buy one gin for your home bar, go ahead and buy Beefeater. So the first quality is that they all contain gin. The other 3 qualities that remain are a little bit more unique. The first is that all 8 of these cocktails are classic cocktails. So classic cocktails are any cocktails that date from no really hard and fast rule, but I like to think of them as cocktails that are at least pre-1950, which means that these cocktails are at least 75 years old. And in the case with most of these cocktails, they're actually 100 to 150 years old for the most part. So these are cocktails that were really popular in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And even now in the year 2026, these cocktails have stood the test of time. They have persisted and they're still quite popular today. The second quality they contain is that all 8 of these cocktails contain either 3 or 4 ingredients. And really when you're a home bartender, especially in that first year when you're still in the beginner stages, it's really important to look for cocktails to make that have 3 or 4 ingredients. I have found that that's really the ideal amount when you're a beginner home bartender, because with that amount of ingredients, you still get enough complexity and enough quality, and you can really focus on the ingredients and make a nice drink. But you don't have too many ingredients where it becomes unwieldy, unmanageable. You feel like you're always having to run to the store to buy ingredients. You feel like it takes forever to make the drink because there's just so many ingredients, all those different things. And maybe you forget things because you're still learning all these recipes. Really, all those things are mitigated by using just 3 or 4 ingredients in your drinks. And that's something that all 8 of these cocktails have in common. So that's why in addition to being classic cocktails, which is a category that all home bartenders should start with, they are all also contain 3 or 4 ingredients, which means they're ideal for beginner home bartenders. Before you become too advanced or intermediate, and you can start working with those higher complexity cocktails like tiki cocktails and other kind of classic, modern classic, and newer cocktails that contain 5, 6, 7 ingredients, things like that. Really focus on these cocktails, 3 or 4 ingredients, very easily accessible for beginner home bartenders. And finally, the third quality that they all have is that they all 8 of these cocktails, I have already made video tutorials making these cocktails on this channel itself. And the links for the tutorial videos for each of these 8 cocktails will be in the description below. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I won't be making any of these cocktails in this video specifically, but one of the reasons for that is because I have already made videos dedicated to each one of these 8 cocktails, and those will all be linked in the description below. So let's start going over these cocktails one by one. So first on my list is the Martini. This is the quintessential gin cocktail. I put it first on the list. It's not the first gin cocktail video I made on this channel, but it is the first cocktail on this list because Martini is essentially its own category. It just contains 3 ingredients. I think of the Martini and the Manhattan as creating really their own family. I basically just call it the Martini Manhattan family. And those cocktails all contain 3 ingredients. They all contain a liquor, which in the case of the Martini is gin. They all contain a vermouth, which in the case of the Martini is dry vermouth. And they all contain some bitter component, which in the case of the Martini, you could either use Angostura or orange bitters, but I prefer to use orange bitters. So any drink that contains those 3 ingredients, liquor, vermouth, and bitters, is going to be in that Martini Manhattan family. And the Martini is the most iconic of those cocktails. If I asked all of you guys to really name like 5 to 10 cocktails, pretty much all of you would name the Martini. It's just the quintessential cocktail. It's a cocktail that is extremely classic and old, but even in the year 2026, it's still extremely popular. When people think of cocktails, oftentimes they think of the Martini. That is the classic cocktail. So that's why it's on this list. Now going to number 2. Number 2 is going to be the Negroni. And the Negroni is in that same family as the Martini. It does contain those same 3 components. The liquor, like with the Martini, is going to be gin. The vermouth, the vermouth is actually different because the Martini uses dry vermouth, but the Negroni will use sweet vermouth. And then for the bitter component, we're going to be using Campari. Now, Campari is a Italian bitter liqueur. It's that famous red color. so it's very iconic. And the Negroni is another cocktail like the like the Martini. Extremely old cocktail, extremely classic cocktail, but in the year 2026, it's still very popular. And that's why it has stood the test of time, and that's why it deserves its place on this list of 8 essential gin cocktails that all home bartenders should learn in their first year. For me, it's very special because the Negroni is actually the very first cocktail that I ever made. So I didn't just learn it in my first year as a home bartender. I learned it literally in my first day as a home bartender. This was the very first cocktail that started things for me. I think it's a great cocktail. I think if you're looking for a cocktail that you want to start your home bartending journey, any of these 8 cocktails will do, but I'm especially biased towards saying the Negroni is a great cocktail for that choice. Finally, we'll go to, or sorry, not finally, but next up, we'll go to number 3 on this list. This is the Bee's Knees. The Bee's Knees is actually the first gin cocktail that I have made a video for this channel. I believe it's like the second video I've made on this channel. It's the first on this list in the sour family. And the sour family of cocktails contains 3 ingredients. They contain a liquor, which in this case is going to be gin, of course, like with all the other cocktails on this video. And then the second ingredient is going to be a citrus juice, which in this case is lemon juice. And the third ingredient is a syrup, which, as you can tell by the name Bee's Knees, the third ingredient is going to be honey syrup. And I believe this is actually the oldest cocktail that uses that very classic combination of lemon and honey. This is still something that's extremely popular. Pretty much everyone knows about how well lemon and honey go together. But I believe this is actually the first time it was used in a cocktail. And they combine both of those elements with gin to create a rather simple, but still very enjoyable, very pleasant cocktail. Every time I make this cocktail at my parties, it's an absolute crowd pleaser. So I would say, I would actually say of these 8 cocktails on this list, the Bee's Knees is actually my favorite. It's the first of the sour family on this list, and it does satisfy those 3 criteria: classic cocktail, 3 ingredients, and I have made a video previously on this channel for that. I think it's a great essential cocktail that all beginner home bartenders should learn. Then let's go to number 4. Number 4 is the Gin Gimlet. Now the Gin Gimlet is also a sour cocktail. It contains those same 3 components: liquor, citrus juice, syrup. This time the liquor, as with before, as all the cocktails on this video, the liquor is going to be gin, the citrus juice is going to be lime juice, and then the syrup is going to be simple syrup. So that's how you really cover those 3 things. And by just swapping the citrus juice from lemon to lime, and then from swapping the syrup from honey to simple syrup, between the Bee's Knees and the Gin Gimlet, there's a lot of similarities, but still a lot of differences as well. So you can really create a completely different but still amazing cocktail just by swapping these different ingredients. So really, if you're moving down the ladder, we saw similarities between the Martini and the Negroni, and now we see a lot of similarities here between the Bee's Knees and the Gin Gimlet. So these are great cocktails to learn. And when you're learning these cocktails, you don't have to go out and buy so many different new ingredients at a time. You can honestly just buy the 3 ingredients for the Bee's Knees and then keep the liquor the same, and then go ahead and buy a bottle of lime juice and a bottle of simple syrup, and then you can go ahead and make the Gin Gimlet. So you're not really having to buy all these new ingredients. So if you really just want to start and, the first 8 cocktails you make, you want them all to be gin cocktails, you can just go ahead and go down this list and just acquire the different modifying ingredients. Acquire the vermouths and the bitters and the Campari and the lime juice, lemon juice, honey syrup, simple syrup, all those different modifying agents, and just use the same bottle of gin. And you can really move down this ladder and learn a bunch of different cocktails without having to really break the bank and buy tons of different bottles of liquor. So that covers the Gin Gimlet. Next up is going to be the Pegu Club. And the Pegu Club is the first cocktail on this list that falls in the Daisy family. And the Daisy family is basically, I think of it as a sour that also has a liqueur, which adds a little bit extra flavor profile, a little bit extra sweetness, and a little bit more complexity. And in the case of the Pegu Club, it's going to be using Cointreau, which is an orange liqueur. The most famous of all the orange liqueurs is Cointreau. And you combine it here with gin, with lime juice, and with some bitters, and that's how you create the Pegu Club. So it's really like that modified sour. It's a sour that has a liqueur component as well. And this is also a classic cocktail, just 4 ingredients, and really has stood the test of time. It's still a great drink even today in the year 2026. I would say this drink is more on the sour side, more on the dry side. But for people that do have that preference, they like sour cocktails, they like drier cocktails, this will really satisfy that craving. So that's why I think the Pegu Club is a great cocktail. Next up, number 6, we have the Army and Navy. The Army and Navy now goes back to the sour category. It's basically a gin sour, but instead of syrup for that syrup component, instead of using honey syrup or simple syrup like we've used with the Bee's Knees and the Gin Gimlet, now we're going to be using orgeat. And orgeat is a specialized syrup. It's basically, I think of it as like an almond syrup. It's got that like sweet, nutty sort of marzipan type flavor. So it's a great ingredient in a number of different cocktails for both summer and winter cocktails. I think the Army and Navy is a great example of a classic cocktail that uses that. So basically use that as your syrup component. You have gin and lemon juice, and then you also add a little bit of Angostura bitters to have a little bit more complexity, a little bit more of that spice flavor, that bitter component. And that really balances all the other different flavors of this drink and makes for a great cocktail. And then next up for number 7, we have the French 75. The French 75 is another one of my favorite cocktails. I made it on a number of different occasions before. It's the first highball and only highball on this list. I think of it essentially as a gin sour that uses champagne as a lengthening component, as that fizz, as that soda, to really make the cocktail longer and add a bubbly component to that cocktail. And because it uses champagne, which everyone associates with things like weddings, celebrations, New Year's Eve, job promotions, all these types of like big events, that's why I think the French 75 is a great cocktail to learn. The first time I ever made it, I started making cocktails. My first cocktail was in June 2020. And then that year, December 31st, 2020, New Year's Eve, that's when I made the French 75 for the first time. So whenever you're making it for a big event like that, for me, it's actually my signature cocktail for New Year's Eve parties, or really any type of big occasion, but I especially associate with New Year's Eve because of that first year as a home bartender. I think it's a great cocktail for any of those types of occasions. So just to summarize the ingredients, it does contain the classic gin sour ingredients, which are going to be gin, lemon juice, and simple syrup. And then for the fourth component, that's where you bring in champagne or any type of really sparkling wine. You can use Prosecco, you can use Brut, you can use Cava, any of those different components to really add that length to the ingredient. And that's really when you can see that it's going to be used for celebrations, because it does contain champagne, which everyone associates, like I said, weddings, New Year's Eve, big birthday celebrations, all those type of events. That's when you can bring this this cocktail in and really serve it for those kind of parties and events. And finally, number 8 is the Martinez. As the name suggests, it is similar to the Martini. I think the Martinez is actually older than the Martini. It's actually a precursor, and it does contain the same 3 components as the Martini and the Negroni and all the other members of that family. It does contain a liquor, which is going to be gin, of course, because this is a gin video. Then it's going to contain vermouth, and then it's going to contain bitters. And on top of that, it actually does contain a little bit of maraschino liqueur. And that's, I think, what really makes this unique compared to other cocktails in that family. Most of the other families in that category just contain those 3 ingredients, those 3 components: liquor, vermouth, bitter component. And the Martinez is unique because in addition to that, it also does contain a little bit of maraschino liqueur. And although it just contains for usually a teaspoon or bar spoon, depending on what measurement you use or what type of recipe you're using, that really does add a lot of complexity and depth to the drink and makes it really elevates that drink to the next level. So in this video, just to summarize, we covered 8 cocktails. They all contain gin. In addition to that, they all contain 3 other qualities. They're all classic cocktails, which means these recipes are generally somewhere between 100 and 150 years old, and they still persisted to this day. They're still recipes and cocktails that people drink even today in the year 2026. The second quality is that they all contain just 3 or 4 ingredients, so they're very easily accessible and easy to make as home bartenders. You don't have to break the bank. You don't have to go to the store and buy tons of ingredients. You don't have to pour tons of ingredients and memorize a very complex recipe. They just contain 3 or 4 ingredients, so readily accessible to home bartenders. And finally, the third component is that they all are cocktail tutorial videos that I have made for this channel itself. And the links to all the videos making these cocktails will be in the description below. So whatever cocktail you're interested in, maybe you want to make all 8 of them at some point and you just want to start with one and then work your way down the list, all 8 of them will be linked in the description below. So please watch those videos if you really want to learn more about these cocktails. I go over the history, how to make the cocktail, what type of bottles I like to use in terms of the different ingredients, and go ahead and watch those videos, make those cocktails, enjoy those cocktails, share those cocktails with other people, throw parties where the cocktails are on the menu for those parties. Whatever you want to do, enjoy those cocktails and enjoy them with other people as well. Enjoy them responsibly. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you found the advice in this video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe. I like to do 2 styles of videos on this channel. The first will be more of a talking head style video like this one, where I give general advice, share tips and tricks, go over different topics of home bartending, share stories from my own journey and things like that I hope will help you guys become better home bartenders. And the second style video will be like the 8 videos that are linked in the description below. They'll be tutorial style videos showing you guys how to make specific cocktails. Thank you. Cheers.